Hello, welcome everyone to Medical Tutor. Today we are going to be solving Jamb biology past question year 2014. In our section 1 video we've previously released, we solved 14 questions. That's question 1 to 14, and in this section 2 we're going to be solving question 14 to 28. We do this in order to make sure our students understand each and every question by full explanation. We are not in a hurry to compile a short video. We want all our students to understand very well, so it takes a very long period and shorter questions for each video. So please make sure you watch the previous one if you haven't, and please make sure you click the subscribe button, put on the notification bell for our future releases. Thanks for doing that. Let us go into what we have for today. Question 15. Coordination and regulation of body activities in mammals are achieved by. Coordination and regulation of body activities in mammals are achieved by A. Nerves and muscle, B. Nerves and hormones, C. Nerves only, D. Hormones only. A. Nerves and muscle, B. Nerves and hormones, C. Nerves only, D. Hormones only. Now, the coordination and regulation of the body activities in mammals, let's assume humans particularly. Coordination and regulation has to do with the maintenance of the body system, how it responds to external stimuli, how it responds to internal stimuli as well, not just external but also internal stimuli. For example, for external stimuli, let's assume you were unfortunately able to press your leg against a hot pan, or maybe you mistakenly touched a very hot pot when you were trying to carry it off from the gas, or you did something that caused you a painful sensation. The nerves are going to react by making sure you retract your hand immediately from what is harming you. For example, imagine you mistakenly putting your leg or pressing your leg on nail. You were not aware, but when you put your leg on the nail, your leg is going to give you a painful sensation. Even before you are able to react yourself, your leg is going to draw itself back. That's an example of an involuntary movement. All these things are controlled by the impulses that are sent by the nerves. So for coordination and regulation of the body, nerves are very important. They are a must because they send stimuli, they receive stimuli, they react to it, and they make sure that the body is able to stay well in the best condition. Okay. And the other part that notice, the nerves are helping to control most of the muscles. In fact, all the muscles, nerves control all the muscles. No muscle just moves on its own, whether it's involuntary or voluntary. Do you understand? And for such, there are also some things that control and regulate the internal part of the body. If the nerves are regulating the muscles, which act for the external part and every other part, the hormones also do something by regulating the internal part of the body. For example, when you're in a dry place, for example, look at this dry season. During the dry season, you're going to feel that you are feeling tasty, and it's as if there's no water inside of you. You'll be sweating a lot when you walk too much in the sun. The body is trying to tell you that you've lost too much water and you need enough water to maintain the body system. And the only way it does this is by the release of hormones. Do you understand? It releases some hormones from the pituitary gland in the brain. These hormones and other factors coupled in the body are going to help you to, they will give you the sense of thirstiness, as if you need to drink water. You're going to be feeling thirsty. Okay, so these hormones will cause you to be feeling thirsty, and that will prompt you to take water to drink. Yes, hormones do that. When there's too much water in your body as well, these hormones and nerves will work together with the bladder and everything, so you can go and urinate. When you're hungry, these hormones also act with the nerves as well in the digestive system. Whatever is happening to you, be it internal regulation or external regulation, nerves and hormones are going to be there to coordinate and regulate your body system. Another perfect example is the release of adrenaline from the adrenal gland. Okay, we also have so many more hormones out there that perform the function of internal regulation of the body, and we have a lot of nerves out there that perform the coordination of the body. All right, that's the correct answer for question number 15, option A, nerves and hormones. Question number 16. The cerebellum of the brain controls, look at the statement, the cerebellum, not, we have the cerebrum, we have the cerebellum, the cerebrum. Do not mistake the cerebrum for the cerebellum. They are entirely two different things. Now, the cerebellum is also known as the small brain or little brain because of one important factor, and that's what it controls. So the cerebellum of the brain controls A, reflex action, B, muscular activity, C, emotional expressions, D, endocrine system. The correct answer is muscular activity. The reason is because cerebellum of the brain is responsible for most voluntary movements. Yes, it's responsible for most voluntary movement. And movement in the body or locomotion has to do with muscular activity entirely. So you can see the cerebellum also controls the muscular activity. You can see in the option there's nothing like voluntary movement. They might not put the exact answer there, but indirectly you are to know that anything having to relate with movement has to do with muscular activity. Now, not all muscular activity is voluntary. There are some involuntary ones. For example, when you are shivering, there will be involuntary twitching of your muscles. Your muscles are going to be vibrating in order to produce more temperature for your body when you are shivering. Now, that's an involuntary action. However, this time around, the muscular activity that is corresponding with the cerebellum of the brain are voluntary ones. So the cerebellum of the brain, which is also known as the little brain, controls muscular activity. Option B. Alright, then let's move on to the next question. 17. The part of the brain responsible for peristalsis is the part of the brain responsible for peristalsis is the first. What is peristalsis? Peristalsis means smooth contractions of muscles in order to propel food forward. For example, in the stomach, the gut and whatsoever, you notice that when you eat, the food will slid down your esophagus, then go into the stomach for digestion, then later into the intestine and so on. Now, the movement of this food is not just because you are sitting down. Even if you lie down to eat, you notice that the food will still go into your stomach. So technically speaking, there is something that is propelling it into your stomach, and that process is known as peristalsis. Peristalsis means the smooth muscular contraction of the esophagus and all the digestive system in which the food is present, and these smooth muscular contractions leads to movement of the food, which will propel it into the needed location inside the digestive system. So the part of the brain that is now responsible for this peristalsis is A, olfactory lobe. Olfactory lobe is the part of the brain that is responsible for smell. Do you understand? It's responsible for smelling. So obviously it is not responsible for peristalsis. B, medulla oblongata, and that is the correct answer. The part of the brain responsible for peristalsis is the medulla oblongata. We also have the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus controls your thermal regulation, that is temperature regulation. It also controls thinking, talking about state of thinking, your emotions, senses. Yeah, talking about hypothalamus. Then talking about thalamus itself. Thalamus has to do with relay, anything that has to do with impulses. Yeah, thalamus has to do with that. So let's go again. Olfactory lobe has to do with sense of smell. Medulla oblongata has to do with peristalsis. Hypothalamus has to do with thermal regulation and senses. Thalamus has to do with relay station in particular. So the correct answer is B, medulla oblongata. Question 18. Which of the following instruments is used for measuring atmospheric pressure? Which of the following instruments is used for measuring atmospheric pressure? A, hydrometer. Not hydrometer, because hydrometer is used to measure the relative density. Listen well. Hydrometer is used to measure the relative density of water or of liquid, not just water, of liquid. Hygrometer, that is option B. Hygrometer is used to measure the amount of water vapor in air or soil. Now look at the difference. In hydrometer, we measure the relative density of liquid. In hygrometer, we are measuring the amount of water vapor in air or in soil. For example, during this harmattan period, you notice that in the morning there will be fog and a lot of things. Now there are a lot of water vapor in the atmosphere, and hygrometer can be used to measure the amount. Thermometer, as you already know, is used for measuring temperature. Thermometer, that's what it means by thermometer. So used for measuring the temperature of the body. So obviously it's not for atmospheric pressure. And last option, barometer, which is correct. Barometer is the instrument used for measuring the atmospheric pressure. Now let's recap. Hydrometer is for relative density of a liquid. Hygrometer is for the amount of water vapor in air or soil. Thermometer is for the temperature of the body, and barometer is for the atmospheric pressure. Okay, let's move on to question number 19 and 20. So question 19, the influence of soil on organisms in a habitat is referred to as the influence of soil, the effects of soil, the ability, the force being exerted by soil on organisms in a habitat is referred to as A, edaphic, B, physiographic, C, biotic, D, topographic. First, what is topographic? Topographic factors, let's use the word factors, are factors that are determines the slope. Rather, let me use the word determines the slope, the elevation of a particular land, the curvature of a mountain, whatever. You've seen a lot of places that are somehow slopey, some places are straight and flat, some places are deep inside the ground, some places are curved Yeah, that's what they call topographic factors. They affect a lot of things such as distribution of population. However, this does not have much influence on organisms in habitat. And this is not the same thing as the influence of soil on organisms in habitat. Biotic factors are living factors. Yeah, it contain living things. The effect of living things on organisms in an habitat, still not the same thing. Physiographic has to do with the natural factors, that is the factors produced by nature on the habitat, on the organisms inside an habitat, still not the same thing as number 19. But edaphic means the influence of soil on organisms living within an habitat. So look at the question again. The influence of soil on organisms in the habitat is referred to as edaphic. That's the definition. Physiographic has to do with the natural influences. It does not have to do it does not have anything to do with the soil. Biotic has to do with living influences. That is influences caused by living organisms on the whatever animals or what is living in the habitat. Topographic has to do with the slope, the curvature, the elevation influence on organisms. So the correct answer here is A, option A. The influence of soil on organisms in an habitat is called edaphic. So question number 20. The genetic makeup of an organism is described as. The genetic makeup of an organism is described as A, allele. No, allele is an alternation of gene. Yeah, alternation of two pairs of gene is known as allele. Chromosome, no, chromosome is more like an housing that contains the DNA. Yeah, you can find the chromosome in the nucleus, and inside the chromosome you will see the DNA and the genes all together, and some proteins that holds them together. That's for higher level though, but you need to know that inside the chromosome you can find the DNA. When you unwind, when the chromosome is always in a kind of coily form, but when you unwind it, that is, you are trying to straighten it up, you are going to see the proteins, the DNAs, the bridges between them and the proteins, and a lot of factors that is holding them together. So it's not the chromosome. The phenotype means the physical characteristics of an organism. Phenotype, physical characteristics of an organism. Whereas genotype means the genetic characteristics, the genetic features, the genetic makeup of an organism. Now, these two features are things you're going to encounter more often: phenotype and genotype. Phenotype has to do with the physical, that is the things you see outside, and the genotype has to do with the genetic makeup, that is the things that are inside. And note, it is whatever is inside that determines what is outside. So, genotype determines the phenotype automatically. You have to understand that the genotype determines the phenotype. There are other factors that also determine the phenotype, like the environment. But whichever the case, it is what the genotype, that is the genetic makeup of an organism, allows, that the physical properties are going to bring out. So your gene will determine the way you look, the way you walk, because it contains all the information about you. So technically, the genetic makeup of an organism is called genotype. All right, then let's move on to the next question. Question 21. The major limiting factor of productivity in the aquatic habitat is. The major limiting factor of productivity in the aquatic habitat is A, food, B, temperature, C, water, D, sunlight. Now, option D would have been correct if aquatic, it would have been correct if plants were the only beings found in the aquatic habitat. Sunlight is needed for photosynthesis, but unfortunately, that's not the only thing that makes up the aquatic habitat. In fact, there are a lot of living organisms, such as animals. I'm not talking about plants in the aquatic habitat. So, sunlight is not necessarily the major limiting factor of productivity. We even have organisms in the aquatic habitat deep in the seawater where light is unable to reach, still reproducing. So this does not really affect the productivity. It is not a major limiting factor. Water is always available in the aquatic habitat. Temperature, still not the same thing. We have deep in the seawater where the temperature is almost as freezing and pleasurable as anything. And we have at the top of the water where sometimes it might be cool, sometimes it might be warm. So not really, it's not a major limiting factor. The major limiting factor is food. For almost every habitat, food is very important, and without food, reproduction is totally reduced. Talking about reproduction, I'm not limiting productivity to reproduction alone, but I'm talking about one of the most important factors. For reproduction, you need food, you need other conditions too that are listed in this option, but food is very important. For productivity, general productivity, talking about productivity, it means your output per day. It means how active you are in that day, how good things you've done, how much distance you've moved. All these aquatic habitat organisms, except from the plants that are stationary, they like moving all around. Look at the shark, the whales, they like moving all around. Locomotion. Now, their productivity, the amount of distance they move a day, what they do, and everything depends on the energy they have, and this energy is given to them by the food they eat. So the major limiting factor of productivity in an aquatic habitat is the food, which is option A. Question 22. Which of the following group of organisms feeds directly on green plants? Which of the following group of organisms feeds directly on green plants? We have what they call food chain, and we have the food web. I'm very sure you've done something similar before. And the lowest on the food chain, even if you use the word food web too, but the lowest on the food chain, let's use the food chain, are the producers. And the producers are also known as green plants. Why? Green plants will use sunlight for photosynthesis, and photosynthesis will be used to produce carbohydrates and some other stuffs necessary for plant survival. Now this carbohydrate, which is stored in their body, once a random animal gets there, once an herbivore gets there, the herbivore is going to take up the plant and eat it. Now that herbivore is a primary consumer. You notice producers, which are green plants, are not consuming any living stuff around. All they take is sunlight. That's why they are called producers, not consumers. But notice, whatever eats green plant is a consumer. So let's assume a little herbivore just comes and eats a producer. That little herbivore becomes a primary consumer depending on the rank of its strength, and it might also be secondary consumer or tertiary. For example, we humans are tertiary consumers. We can eat green plants too, but that doesn't make us a primary consumer. So let's assume a little herbivore eats the producers, it becomes a primary consumer. If another animal, for example omnivores or carnivores, those are animals that eat flesh, once they come around and they eat the little herbivore, for example now we have a lot of scenarios where lizards are being eaten by, I think we have the eagle taking up lizard, eagle taking up snakes. We have a lot of organisms that will feed on primary consumers to become secondary. Then the secondary consumers are also in turn eaten by the tertiary consumers like us. Okay, for example, goats eat, they feed on grasses and a lot of things except from flesh. Yet we will get in there, we eat them as well. So we become the tertiary or the secondary consumer, and the decomposers are the final rank of the food chain. The reason why they're the final rank is because when everything is done and done, you eat green plants, you grow whatever, you die. When you die, your body begins to be converted into organic matter, and the things that will help this decomposition to speed up are the decomposers. They feed on dead organic matter. They are also known as saprophytes in some places, and there are some called detritus feeder depending on what they feed on. So all these things are called decomposers. The lowest of the food chain is the producer, the last is the decomposers, the strongest is the tertiary consumers, and the ones which directly feed on green plants are known as the producers, are known as the primary consumers. That is option A. Question 23. A characteristic feature of tropical rainforest is that it contains trees with narrow leaves. False. They don't contain trees with narrow leaves. B. They contain large number of plant species. Yes, very true. Reason is because, in fact, generally, tropical rainforest contains the largest number of plant species and animal species. So it is very true. They contain the largest number of plant species and animal species. C. Contains fewer number of plant species. False. D. Has total annual rainfall of less than 50%. That's also false. Tropical rainforest, according to the name rainforest, means that there are a lot of rain per year. At least there are about 200 to 1000 centimeter rain. It rains a lot and hard in tropical rainforest. So the correct answer here is that it contains large number of plant species. Question number 24. The study of how and why population size change over time is. The study of how and why population size change over time is A. Population estimation. That's incorrect. Population estimation has to do with calculating the population per year or during some recent period. It has to do with calculation of the population, just as the word suggests, estimation, or you can use the word population calculation. It does not study how and why. It only studies the population on its own, like the number, the increase on its own, the increase and maybe the decrease. It just studies the total number of population. It has nothing to do with why it is like that and why it shouldn't be. So option B, population dynamics. Population dynamics is the study of why and how population size change over time. So option B is the correct answer. Let's also check out population ecology. Population ecology has to do with the study of the factors that now affect population changes. Do you understand? It has to do with the study of the factor on why and how population size changes. You can see the difference. In population dynamics, we study how and why, but not the factors. But in population ecology, we study the and we study the factors that are now involved in it. So, okay, in population dynamics, we understand that there are some factors. We are not studying them, but in ecology, we study those factors to know how they do that in particular. Population cycle has to do with the increase and rise of population size. So let's go over it again. Population estimation has to do with population calculation. Population dynamics has to do with the study of how and why population size change over time. Population ecology has to do with the factors that affect these changes. Population cycle has to do with the increase and the decrease in the population size. So the correct answer here is population dynamics, option B. Question 25. A severe and long dry season is a characteristic feature of. A severe and long dry season is a characteristic feature of. Let's go straight to the answer. The correct answer is Sahel savanna. Now, when you're trying to arrange the hierarchy, the hierarchy should be from mangrove swamps. Mangrove swamps are less, they have less severe and long dry season compared to the others. So they are the least of this option. We can follow it with I think Guinea, then Sudan, then Sahel. So look at it again: the mangrove swamp to Guinea savanna to Sudan savanna, then Sahel savanna. The Sahel savanna has the highest rate of severe and long dry season. Okay, so the correct option here is option A. Question 26. Which of the following is a nitrogen fixing blue-green algae of the soil? Which of the following is a nitrogen fixing blue-green algae of soil? You know, we also have nitrogen fixing bacteria. However, this time around we are being asked for nitrogen fixing blue-green algae of soil. For example, rhizobium is a nitrogen fixing bacteria found in the legumes of a plant or whatsoever. An example of a rhizome that we have in particular, in the first section we said ginger is a rhizome, remember. So rhizobium is a bacteria that stays in that region of the plant, in their rhizome region, for fixing of nitrogen into the soil. Alright, and we also have the nitrosomonas. Nitrosomonas is a bacteria, particularly gram-negative bacteria, and it belongs to the beta proteobacteria. It uses ammonia as energy source, and it is not a blue-green algae, so we can't pick nitrosomonas. We have clostridium. Clostridium, I also think it's a bacteria. Yes, it should be. Clostridium is also a bacteria, and however, it is not a blue-green algae responsible for nitrogen fixation. And the last option here is Anabena. Yes, the correct answer is Anabena. We have some nitrogen fixing in the soil. We have a lot of them. We have the cyanobacteria, we have the Anabena, we have nostoc, we have Azobacter, we have Clostridium, like I've already mentioned before. But all these ones are not nitrogen fixing blue-green algae of the soil. The only ones that is the nitrogen fixing blue-green algae of the soil is the Anabena. Rhizobium fixes nitrogen. Even nitrosomona, I think they do too. Even Clostridium also fixes nitrogen in the soil. However, they are not blue-green algae of the soil. The only one that is the blue-green nitrogen fixing algae is Anabena, which makes option D the correct answer. Okay, question number 27. Question 27. The soil with highest water retaining capacity is, that is the soil that can hold water more, is, the answer is direct there. It's clay soil. Clay soil have large surface area and thus the ability to retain water, and the ones that least retain water, well, here we are having stony soil. I haven't heard anything about stony soil before, but if the sandy soil, then of course sandy soil has the least ability to retain water. Okay, and the correct answer here is A, option A, clay soil. They have the highest water retaining capacity. Question 28, which is also the last one for this video tutorial, section 2, year 2014. The causative agent of poliomyelitis is, I believe you've heard of poliomyelitis before. Okay, it's a virus. Yes, the causative agent of poliomyelitis is a virus, and it is mostly transmitted through contaminated water, contaminated food, or contact with somebody that is already infected. And it's not all people who get infected with poliomyelitis that will become sick or have symptoms. However, those who become sick from having poliomyelitis might become crippled. They might develop paralysis, and that's very, very dangerous. Okay, so you can treat it with a lot of things like pain relievers, rest, and you can go to the hospital when it becomes life-threatening. However, the causative agent is virus, and it is one of the highly infectious viral disease in the world currently. So make sure you protect yourself from it by getting a vaccine in your nearby hospital. So that's all for this video today. Thanks for watching our video tutorial section 2 year 2014 biology past question. For the remaining sections, as for section 3, we have our question from 28 to 42. Yes, 28 to 42. So make sure you click the subscribe button, put on the notification bell, so that once we release the third section, you're going to be joining us here to solve them again from the beginning. I believe you've already gained something from this video tutorial. Don't forget to share to your friends and click the like button. Thanks for doing that.